Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the channel. I've got my new friend Nate here, and I just met Nate today. And Nate's from Indiana, and I was born in Indiana, so nice to meet another Hoosier. And so, tell me a little bit about your background. Like you said that, so you grew up in Indiana, and you were in the Navy for a while.
Yeah, I grew up in Indiana until I was 18, and then I went off for the Navy. Did that for about 6 years, and then.
What was your reason for joining the Navy? Did you have like a particular thing you wanted to learn, or just excited about it, or what was your reason for doing that?
I kind of grew up thinking I would work at the steel mills up in like the Chicagoland area, but at the time I graduated, they all started closing down and going bankrupt and going under and selling out.
Quickly tell the story about your father. You told me off camera, because that was interesting about what happened to your father.
Yeah, actually, I think it's painted the reason I can be young and out here. It kind of painted my personality, but right at the time I was like 16 or 17, my father worked for a steel mill as an electrician, and he worked for him well over his like the amount of time he would need to retire. He worked for over 40 years.
40 years, that's a long time.
Over 40.
Wow.
But right at the time he was going to retire, they ended up claiming bankruptcy. You know, they made sure they gave their CEO multi-million-dollar bonuses, but my dad got screwed out of his entire retirement. He was supposed to get like a severance check. That was gone. The government insured, I think, like a third or a fourth of his pension. So he managed to get that, but he lost out on 2/3 of his pension that he was supposed to get because the government did some kind of agreement with the steel mill. And ever since then, I kind of realized like you can't trust big corporations to care about you as a person.
They care about themselves.
And that if you don't kind of like hoard your money and save your money and learn how to invest it, then you're gonna be old and you're gonna be pretty much destitute. So the way they treated him, I think, really painted the way I've dealt with money into my adult life.
So you've been real careful with your money, huh?
Yeah, real miserly. At 18, I was going into the bank because I was in the Navy. I would go on base to the bank, and I would talk to the bank employees about like, all right, well, how do I build my credit? And I would be taking out loans and then have it on auto pay so I could get my credit up. I was learning about like IRAs at 18, investing in Roth IRAs at 18. So that way I would have something for when I wanted to go to college or buy my first home. Finding out how to invest in stocks, what dividends were, compound interest. I was learning about all that at a very young age comparative to like my peers.
Wow. When I went to college, my freshman year, my mother gave me a check to buy my books. I didn't even know how to fill out a check. Nobody ever taught me in school about a checking account or how to write a check. I didn't even know how to fill it out. It's like, and I know what it's like now in America. This is back in the 70s, of course, but nobody teaches kids about money. How to manage your money, how to manage your credit cards. Like, you see these kids, they'll get a credit card. Like when I was in school, they were going around giving kids an application for a credit card, a MasterCard or a Visa, and everybody got approved, even though they didn't even have a job. And they'd look at, oh, I've got $2,000. I got $2,000. It's like somebody gave them $2,000, but it's $2,000 at 27% interest.
Yeah, right.
But they don't see it that way. They think that they've got $2,000.
Well, they want you're basically creating like debt slaves essentially. Because I've always looked at debt that way. Like if I couldn't afford a car with cash, then like I took out one loan one time because I was real strapped. But if I couldn't afford it with cash, I can't afford it.
That's how I live now.
And the only reasons I would ever take out loans, like I took out, they had subsidized loans when I went to college, which means like you're basically like interest-free loans. So at the same time I was buying a home, my first home.
Wow.
So I took the loans out from the college stuff to pay off the mortgage, which would have been like a 5 or 7% interest rate. So like the only reason to take out any kind of debt, in my opinion, if you're very wealthy, you can leverage it. Like if you're a multimillionaire, which I'm not, or if there's a way you can work the system in order to save money. But a vast majority of people should never, ever, ever use debt if they can avoid it. Sometimes you got to eat, or your kids need shoes, but normal people should not be in debt. Basically makes you a slave.
I heard that rich people, what they do is say they got millions of dollars where they can afford to pay cash for a house, but instead of taking it out of their stocks or whatever, they will take out a mortgage and then pay that mortgage off and somehow that saves them something in their taxes when they do that.
That it's for very rich people. Like I said, I would never suggest this for anybody with a normal income. But also, if you think about it in inflationary times, you know, if you're taking out a loan 5 years ago for $10,000, right? That's just an example.
Yeah.
With inflation taking away the value of what that money can buy, you're actually doing yourself a favor. And also for very rich people, the rates they're paying on that debt is super low compared to like a regular person that's got a high rate of basically interest on that debt. It's smart for real rich people, but I would never suggest it for like a normal person. It helps with a lot of stuff if you're
So
rich.
in the Navy, what did you? How long were you in, and what was your specialty?
I did 6 years. I was military police. They call it Master at Arms in the Navy.
Wow. And so you did your 6 years. You never thought about staying in and making a career out of it, or after 6 years you were done?
The thought had occurred to me, but I was talking with like a lot of older guys, and they were saying like, you know, you need to go to college, like you need to go ahead and advance in this way. And you know, I respected the guys that told me that I worked with. They were civilians, but I respected them enough that I took their advice, and I think they were right. Like I needed to go to college and get my.
Were you ever
degree.
working on ships, or just?
No. I did land-based stuff. I was in a couple duty stations. Like I was in Greece for a year, which was awesome. I'll probably go there again. And actually, one of the things that brought me to the Philippines is I was on this little island called Diego Garcia.
Yeah.
It's just south of the Maldives. But the only people allowed there were American military, English military, and Filipinos, like overseas foreign workers. So like hanging out and partying with the Filipino guys there on that island, I really liked them. Like they were cool dudes,
Yeah,
like
they're
real
very
relaxed,
nice.
a lot of fun, great cooks. So I kind of knew like I wanted to spend a lot of time in the Philippines from meeting those guys.
And so you said you've been in Asia for a while, though. You were in like what, Vietnam and Thailand, or where'd you go?
Well, I was in Thailand overall for about 9 months,
9 months. Wow, that's a long time.
and then with doing the tourist visa stuff every 2 months, or back when the visa was a little different, it was like 2.5 months. You'd have to pop over to a different place. So I've been to Cambodia, Vietnam, South Korea, and now here the Philippines.
Where were you during COVID?
I was in Indiana.
Okay, Indiana. Okay, yeah, back home.
Yeah, kind of. I was kind of taking care of my mother at the time. So when she passed, it kind of opened me up to start going to Asia. I don't have responsibilities anymore, so might as well.
So you're a young guy. You know, how old did you say you were?
39, sir.
39. So you're a young guy, young man. And we don't see that many guys your age that are able to be traveling around Asia, coming to the Philippines. So you're able to, I guess, because of your investments and stuff, you're able to support yourself. You don't need to work anymore, or are you totally retired, or?
I would call it like semi-retired. Like I said,
Semi-retired?
I still have to keep up on a lot of my investments.
Yeah.
But as far as like all growing up, I've always had like 2 or 3 jobs, and always doing side gigs, like
Right.
picking up manual labor off of Facebook or wherever I can find a way to make money. I'd make money. So comparative to what I would do, I would say, yeah, I'm retired, because it's no longer 70, 80-hour weeks for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe 10, 20-hour weeks. So it's, to me, it's like not having a job at all. You know?
Right. Yeah. It's like me. I don't have a job either. It's like I wouldn't really consider this a job, what I do. And so, how long you been in the Philippines now?
Shoot, right around almost a month. Almost a month.
And so, what do you think?
I like it. It's a lot different than where I've been, but I definitely I dig it so far. You know, there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of positives and negatives, but as far as the people go, they're super cool. Like real relaxed, like real chill. Like I was telling you before, the expats in Dumaguete that I've met, it's different than anywhere else I've been. Just as far as like them being willing to meet a new person, help them out, like offer advice unsolicited.
Right.
Because you know, as a guy, you don't ever really want to be like, hey, can you help me?
Yeah.
And like come off as weak.
Yeah.
Whereas they don't make you ask. They say, hey, would you like help?
Yeah.
And then all you have to do is say yes. And
Yeah.
like I met Kevin, and he was giving me all these different little places I could pick up a motorbike. He sent me links to apartments, like amount of a kindness that I haven't really seen elsewhere.
Yeah. The expat community here is very friendly, very helpful. And so going back to when you got out of the Navy, you said you were with the police for a little while.
Yeah, after I got my degree, I went off to work for the Marine Corps as a civilian law enforcement officer.
Really? So the Marines have civilian law enforcement?
Yeah, basically, I'd even work with a lot of the Marines because they have MPs, military police.
Yeah.
But then they have the civilian law enforcement, which it helps them enforce law in a way of like, you think about it, if you're like a low-ranking enlisted guy who's an MP, especially when you have a strict structure, if you have to arrest a lieutenant or a general or somebody high up, there's usually a problem that involves there where the person of higher rank tries to flex their authority.
Right.
Whereas if you have a civilian, their rank means zero to me.
Oh.
So whether you're a lieutenant, whether you're a lance corporal, it doesn't matter to a civilian.
Interesting.
So they augment that, and also they can use a lot of those Marines to go actually do like warfighting duties overseas, and while the civilians do the at-home law enforcement kind of activities.
So why did you give up your career in law enforcement, and did you ever consider like staying until you retired, or did you just get fed up with it, or what was the reason you just walked away from that?
Well, the reason is like I had advanced pretty far up, and you can only really see in so many things and deal with like so many dirtbags before it weighs on you mentally. So the last thing I wanted to do was spend 70 hours a week dealing with the worst of the worst, just real degenerate pieces of trash. And then at the same time, my mother's health was failing. So it was kind of that opportunity of like, if I stay in this career field, I'm going to be here until I retire.
Right.
Or I can get out and take care of my family and start a different career field. And then get away from like the horror that was law enforcement for me. So that kind of pushed me out, got me out.
You said take care of your family. Were you married? Do you have children, or?
No, never married, no children. Just I had my mom who was alive at the time, and like I said, her health was failing. She had the house my father built, and it sat on 2 acres. She's an old lady; she can't do any of it. So I had to come in there and kind of rehab the house and take care of the landscaping. And my sister was real good about taking care of like her medical needs.
Yeah.
Whereas I took care of more like the male duties of the household.
And what about your father?
He passed away a long, long time ago, back when I was still in the Navy, like 2006. 2007, he passed away.
So they must have been young, your parents, when they died.
No, they actually had me. They were a lot older.
Oh, okay.
So my dad used to go to Grandparents' Day at elementary school.
Okay.
So I think he'd probably be in his 90s.
Ooh.
So they had me. They were significantly older. Like I say, he was already retiring at 60-something when I was getting out of high school.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a lot of the guys over here. So, where do you see yourself? I mean, you've been here for a few weeks. I know it's probably too soon to make a decision, but have you decided that you don't want to live in America anymore and you want to live in another country, or do you think you could maybe someday go back to Indiana and start a life there? Or where do you see yourself in a few years?
Well, I still see myself overseas. Frankly, the cost of living is so low in these Asian countries,
right,
or even Eastern Europe I've been looking into, that with my finances, there's no way I could live a life worth living in America. For the quality of life I get over here in Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, I'm sure Myanmar, I've already looked into a lot of those places. The quality of life I get for $2,000 here is the equivalent of like $5,000, $6,000, no, even more maybe, even like $10,000 a month.
Yeah, I think so too.
In the U.S. Like I was saying, in Thailand, I had a beachfront sea view condo studio for $200 a month.
Jeez.
And then with utilities and my phone with internet, $300 a month total. And in order to get that style and that quality of establishment in the U.S., just that alone, you're looking at $5,000, $7,000.
Well, I read something the other day. They were saying that There was a paper written, and they said that there's not one major city in all of America where a person, male or female, who has a minimum wage job, working 40 hours a week, can afford even a studio apartment.
Yeah, I believe it. And with them tightening up who's able to get loans, like as the interest rate goes up and banks tighten their lending, people are kind of forced to be renters.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with renting. I really don't want to
I
own.
am too, yeah.
I've owned a house before and it was a lot of work for little payoff. But I wouldn't want to rent in America because you're paying a lot and you're getting nothing in return, really.
Well, Indiana is on the low end when it comes to cost of renting, at least last time I was there. And so right now, like if you were to say a decent one-bedroom apartment where you lived in Indiana, where you're from, what would that go for if you would guess?
Shoot, I would say since inflation, I'm sure it's more, but it would be $600 to $800 a month, not including electric, utilities, phone, things like that. What I found was odd was when I lived in Indianapolis back in like 08 to 010, I paid for an entire house, like a two-bedroom house with a finished basement, 2-bathroom, sit on a quarter of an acre inside the city. I bought that for like $43,000.
Jeez.
But it was in like a dangerous area and it was run down, so I just fixed it up myself. So you can get houses for really cheap if you're willing to live anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you're renting, to rent in the same location was gonna be $500-$600.
Yeah.
My mortgage was $200. So like and then I had roommates, so it paid for itself and then the utilities. So there's ways you can do it, but nothing like the value you can find in Asia.
Yeah, I
Period.
agree. Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. And other things are cheaper here too. Some things are the same, like food, electricity are the same or more. Gas is probably more here than it is in America. But when, one thing you save a lot of money on here is like dental care and medical care, like basic stuff. You can see a doctor here for $10. I see my cardiologist charges me $16. Medical tests here are real cheap. I had a bunch of medical tests here, and the average cost of a test would be like, say, $15 to $20, where in America it'd be thousands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've only done like one medical thing since I've been out here, which is the dentist. That was in Thailand. I got full cleaning and like the laser whitening with the big machine, zoom whitening.
Yeah.
And it cost me the equivalent of like $95.
Wow.
Whereas in America, I know that'd be like $600. Also, I find the pharmacies, the way they work here and in Europe, where like I know when I'm sick, what I'm sick with. I've been alive long enough. So I can go to the pharmacy and I get a pack of antibiotics for $4 or $5. Whereas in America, you got to pay $70 to see the doctor to get the prescription. Yeah. Then you got to pay another $30 for the actual antibiotics. So there, right there, you're saving $100. And instead of waiting days to see a doctor, like, oh, I have it feels like a bacterial infection. Bam, got my antibiotics, take them, feel 100%.
Well, with my medication, I take quite a few heart medications that my cardiologist prescribed for me. And when I run out, I just go to the pharmacy and show them the empty box, and they refill it. No prescription needed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I don't have to go to the doctor, which saves me not just money, but time. And so I really like that, And so, most things you can just get over the counter here.
But the time is the big one, especially when it comes to medical stuff.
Yeah.
Like I was finding some of the wait times on some medical stuff would be months.
Yeah.
It's like, well, by the time that's over with, the problem's either gotten so bad that like you might as well go to the hospital. Whereas here, like, there's no wait.
No.
There's no wait.
I wanted to see my cardiologist before I came to the Philippines because I'd had, quadruple bypass surgery. And they said, the next appointment's 6 months from now. 6 months. I said, I'm not going to wait around for 6 months. And when I came here and was having some problems, I went to my regular doctor and he made me an appointment with a cardiologist like the next week. No problem. And asked me what time I wanted, so. But since you're a veteran now, you have options like, I guess you could go, I think since they've got all this military bases open up in the Philippines, there'll probably be places in the Philippines that a veteran could go to the doctor if they wanted to, right? Or do you have any kind of benefits there?
Yes and no. So if you're a disabled veteran, because there's different kinds, like you'll get percentages based on what's messed up on you. Yeah. So like, for instance, I do have a rating of 0%. on my nose because like I got punched in the face a bunch doing law enforcement,
Yeah.
and it deviated my septum. So that basically just means like if I ever need to be seen for my deviated septum, I can go to Manila and they'll see the problem for free.
Yeah.
But if like, say I had a heart attack, there's nothing related from the military for my heart attack. So Manila won't see me. Even if the new bases open up, they won't see me because it's got to be related to your military disability.
Yeah. Are you getting kind of pension from the military?
No,
You won't get nothing?
no, like no pensions or anything for the 6 years I was in. But if you do get like disability ratings that are higher, like 20% or 100%, they'll give you money if you're disabled.
One question I've been asking a lot of the guys I've interviewed lately, and I know you're a young guy, so you may not even be able to answer this, but like in your lifetime, what's like the hardest thing you've ever had to go through? And you think that I'm so glad I made it through that. It was a really difficult time for me.
It's a deep question.
Yeah.
There's been a couple times where it's been really, really hard, but I'd probably say there were some scenes, like being away from my home when I was in the military and like not having any kind of support network of like my mom and my dad and my brothers and sisters, and kind of having to go to some of the harder calls as a police officer, especially the ones involving children. I would say that was probably the most mentally degrading to me. But as far as like the hardest to deal with was probably the passing of my parents. Probably.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's going to be hard.
So I mean, there's been hard times throughout, but nothing you could.
Can you give me an example, like as a police officer, that you say that was really hard on you, like when you had to deal with that particular case?
Well, I don't know if I describe it, if you'll be able to put it on YouTube.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah, there are. I don't think a lot of humans understand like the horrible people that are out there, and like how horrible people can be.
Dude.
I think your average American doesn't understand like the horrors other humans are capable.
There's monsters out there.
There are like not even monsters. Monsters I would put in like a better category. There are people that they don't deserve to live.
Wow.
Like I said, if I were to describe it, there's no way you could put it on YouTube at all. Like it would be taken down.
That's got to be so hard. I mean, you go through something like that. You go to the crime scene, you see whatever it is you saw. We can all imagine that, and then you have to go home and go to sleep at night, and you have to go the next day and get up and go to work again. I mean, that's just got to be. I can't imagine what that's like. I mean, I can't even imagine how hard that would be.
Well, I will say, luckily, like from the military side, and even like doing the Marine Corps stuff, your exposure to it isn't as much as like say like detectives or investigators. But if you're a sensitive, I didn't realize I was a sensitive guy. I thought, real rah-rah macho dude. But after you've dealt with some of these people and you've seen the things that they do, it does. I try not to think about it. And frankly, like this is probably the first time I've talked about it in like years, really. Or even like thought about those things in a purposeful way, because they do become intrusive. Like it'll pop in your head and you got to try to like get it out of there. And yeah, it's not good. I wouldn't recommend law enforcement for anybody, really. You got to be a cold kind of dude, or you got to be like some of the best cops I met were like real devout Christians, family men, because I think it was like kind of that faith that got them through. I'm not a religious guy, but I think that was kind of helped them get through those things. Whereas if you don't have any kind of support mechanism, all you see is the horror. You don't get to interact with the good on a daily basis.
Did you ever follow up on like somebody did a horrible thing and say they got sentenced to death, or did you ever like follow up on them, like that guy finally got executed and he deserved it? Or
I never dealt with any cases where anybody got a death penalty. Death penalty is super rare. I've followed up a couple times, and like people have gotten off with things that I knew they shouldn't gotten off with. And I've followed up sometimes, and people got reasonable punishments for their crimes. But a lot of them I didn't want to follow up. Like it was one of those things like you do what's required for you as the police officer, investigator, right? and then I just wanted it to go away. I don't want to ever think about it again. I want it to just go.
Right.
Because the worst thing that you can really do is like, you've seen somebody who's like a child predator, and they get 9 months.
Jeez.
When in reality, like, they should be put down, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not legally, but in my opinion, they should be put down.
Right.
And they get some kind of slap on the wrist, like that kind of stuff weighs on you too, knowing that like in 9 months this jerk is going to be walking around probably doing the same thing, because a lot people who do certain crimes, they don't rehabilitate.
Yeah.
Like statistically,
They get out of
just
jail
don't.
and go right back to what they were doing before.
Yeah, they just learn to hide it better.
Yeah,
Or they
right.
learn not to snitch on themselves essentially, or like rat on themselves.
Do you think crime is getting worse in America? Or do you think it's the same as we just like we're more aware of it now because of the internet and stuff? Or you think it's actually worse?
By the data, it is worse.
Really?
If you can look through like the FBI, it's UCR, Uniform Crime Related Statistics or something like that. But the FBI comes out with data on all your crimes that are committed, and they do it every year, and they classify it in all sorts of different ways. It's really great for research. But in the 90s, we saw like a huge decline. But now that like lawlessness has taken over, like we're seeing huge inclines, especially in your major cities. Your suburban areas aren't seeing that much of an increase, but your cities are seeing huge spikes.
Yeah, I see these whole blocks in like Seattle and big cities where they're just drug addicts and openly using drugs, and you know, the fentanyl and camping out in the city, and nobody does anything about it. It's like even though it's against the law, they're still there. You know, hundreds of people just camping out and doing whatever they want to do openly.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, the harm to society isn't even in this moment where that's taking place, where people are going out and murdering and doing drugs. The harm is taking place 2 generations from now, where the kids who had to grow up thinking that this is normative behavior.
Well,
and
that was their parents.
that why wasn't I protected? Why wasn't I shielded? Or like, why are my parents out there smoking meth?
Yeah.
Or robbing stores? The real harm, in my opinion, is done in a couple generations.
You know, I get asked all the time about, well, isn't it dangerous in the Philippines? And apparently even on the internet, this is a country that they're saying it's not safe to travel to sometimes. And I've been there for almost 5 years. Now, granted, I haven't been all over the country, but I've been to Manila, and I haven't seen any crime. Nobody's tried to rob me. I haven't seen like anybody that looks like they're on drugs. I haven't seen anybody get into a fight. I haven't seen any road rage. I don't know anybody that's been robbed. There's been some murders that have taken place on this island since I've been here. Most notably, our governor was assassinated, but they caught those guys within hours. And when I was in America, on the news every day, the local news, there was like a killing every day.
Oh,
In Louisville, where I was living. And so I just think it's very safe here. As a former police officer, do you feel safe here?
oh yeah. Well, I
Or in
felt
all of Asia? How about that, in all of Asia?
all Asia. I even lived in Mexico for a couple months. There were places. You shouldn't do this. I would not recommend this to anybody. But I've walked around at night almost everywhere I've been.
Yeah, me too, here.
Right? Whether Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Mexico, even. I felt safer to walk around at night in all these foreign countries than I would ever feel in Chicago or Memphis, Tennessee, or New York, any of those places. I would not feel safe just wandering about at night.
Yeah.
Like you're basically asking to get held up at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Whereas in Thailand, the only I talk better about that because I was there for 9 months.
Yeah.
Was a couple times I saw guys from Eastern Europe get loud and like bad people around a little bit. But as far as like the Thai people, no. Like they don't act out like that.
No.
One time I saw a guy get a little drunk and he pulled out a knife. But it was after hours, being somewhere where I shouldn't have been, doing stuff I shouldn't have been doing. Like if you stay out of places that are obvious as a problem anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
My big test is if I see women and children. If I'm walking around and I see women and children, I know it's okay for my 220-pound butt to be walking around, because generally most of these countries I'm twice the size of the local. And if a woman and child is out there, it's safe. If you go into an area and you see it's mostly like young men, get the hell out. Don't be dumb. There's a reason why women and children aren't walking around out there. It's the same thing like if you don't want food poisoning from a restaurant.
Yeah.
You just look. If the locals are eating there, you're good to go.
Yeah.
It's just being somewhat aware of your surroundings.
Well, you go down the boulevard here, you know, in Dumaguete, and which is brand new. Our boulevard's brand new, and you go down there, especially tonight, Saturday night, you'll see hundreds, if not 1,000 people walking around there, men, women, children, and it's just this peaceful atmosphere. There's nobody doing drugs. There's nobody drunk. Nobody trying to rip people off. People with baby carriages and stuff, just walking around, playing volleyball out there, and it's just so peaceful and calm. You feel so safe and relaxed, you know. It just, you know, it's nothing fancy about it, you know, but just like it's just nice.
Yeah, no doubt. I would say Asia, the violent crime is not a problem here at all.
No, it's not.
Especially if you're a foreigner, because like you're not going out to the most impoverished areas where people are on yaba or meth.
Yeah.
If you're going to encounter any crime in Asia, from what I've seen, it's crimes of opportunity. So you're a dum-dum who left his phone on the table and walked to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And actually 90% of the time it's going to be safe.
Yeah, it is.
But that 10%, you wouldn't do that in an American city. Why
We've
are you doing it here?
More than once we have left, my wife has left our bag with had everything in it someplace, and we realized like 30 minutes later, went back, it's still sitting there. Oh, yeah, here's your bag.
Yeah.
No problem. On another thing, like another question I'm asking guys nowadays, so in your lifetime, and you look back on things that have happened to you, what's like the best thing you think? I'm so glad I made that particular decision. It was like a life-changing decision for me. Something that was really good. You say, I'm so glad I did that. It changed everything for me.
That's another deep question. I've been very lucky. I've always told people I'm not very smart. I'm smart enough, but for some odd reason, I just have the best luck. Like even when I make horrible mistakes, I manage to like skate my way out of too much problems or too much danger. Honestly, I would say moving overseas. I went from being like pretty severely depressed and like not really having purpose, isolated, like all the things that like you would do to somebody like somebody you wanted to see in horror, you would put them in that situation.
Yeah.
But once I got overseas and I realized like, oh, I don't have to be introverted. I can be extroverted. And people are happy to talk to me. You know, they talk about like white privilege in the States.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in the States. That exists here in Asia. People see you being different. They see you being like the only foreigner they've ever seen. You know, walking through Cambodia, I had kids like, I know I was the first foreigner they ever saw. And they were excited. People wanted to take pictures with me.
Yeah, I've had that.
So they could show like their family members. You know, people were excited to talk to you. Like excited to get to know you.
Yeah.
You're not getting that in America. People aren't excited to talk to you.
No.
Maybe if you're a billionaire, but here it's like people are genuinely excited to see you.
Well, they want you here. Like they really do. They actually, you know, from the government officials all the way down, the way I've been treated for 5 years now, everywhere I go, is they want me here. As long as like you obey the laws and you're a good person, you don't take advantage of anybody, they want you here. You know, you're welcome in this country. And they'll say that to you, well, thank you for choosing the Philippines to retire. And it just makes you feel at home here. Like nobody looks at like, what's that guy doing here? You know, there's another foreigner. It's not like that at all. Like, oh, there's a nice guy. I wonder what his story is. And they're just curious to get to know you.
Yeah, and their mentality throughout Asia, and you know, some people like to say it's, and it might be because of like either like the strong Catholicism or strong Buddhism, or even strong Muslim, but I haven't had too many interactions with that, is like their peaceful mentality.
Yeah.
Like the idea of do no harm.
Yeah.
Whereas I found a lot of people I dealt with in America, even outside of like my law enforcement dealing with dirtbags, was a lot of people see it as like an opportunity to use you. Like an opportunity for like them to take advantage of what can you do for me.
Right.
Whereas here it's like a do no harm mentality of like, how can I help you?
Right.
How can I do something positive for another person?
Yeah.
Which is the way I've always wanted to live my life.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you can't really do that in America. People take advantage. They just keep taking and taking and taking. From my personal perspective, I could be maladjusted. But here, they'll want your money because you have more.
Yeah.
Right? And you'll get people that bag and you'll get people. but it's not a mentality of take everything I can from you until you're left with nothing.
Yeah.
Whether it be like mentally, spiritually, monetarily, that just doesn't exist here. It's not part of who they are as a people.
Well, you know, I've been walking along the beach and stuff and all of a sudden there's a little group of people and they're having like a little, you know, some food and some whatever on the drinks on the beach and families and stuff. You come walking by, a total stranger. Hello, come on, have a drink with us. Have some food. Sit down, you hungry? You know, they've got nothing and they're inviting me over. They don't even know me. And I see that all the time here in the Philippines where they just welcome a total stranger to share what little they've got.
Yeah.
You know, and it's gives you a good feeling.
You brought up like the perspective of things being real dangerous and overseas.
Yeah.
And you know, I do believe that's very true in a lot of countries.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was in places in Mexico, places here. I believe that's a lot of propaganda, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because as long as you keep some wits about you, the people are friendly. I had people in Mexico, they invited me to their home to dinner. I had people, I was friends with one of the nephews. I had the uncles and the grandfather offering me to live with them
Wow.
at no cost. Just because like they saw I was a foreigner in a foreign land and they wanted to like be a good ambassador.
Yeah.
They took the same mentality that I try to take when I visit other countries. I'm an ambassador for the United States.
Yeah.
If I go somewhere, the next time they see an American, they're going to think of me.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
So if you get people that act out and they're dishonest or they're stealing or like they get real loud when they don't get their way, like an entitled child,
Yeah.
whenever they see the next foreigner, they're going to think of that guy.
Yeah.
And as you know, like human psychology, people like to focus on the negative. So for that one guy who acts out or steals, it's got to be the equivalent to 10 people who act with kindness and like loving kindness and giving. So they act a lot of the same way of like, I want to be an ambassador for the Philippines, you know, like let him see me be as a good person.
Right.
So when he thinks of the Philippines, he can think of like a good person.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's their thought
No, I
process.
think that's right.
But it's the way they act.
Yeah. Yeah, all my friends, like I've got so many friends here and like they're all good guys and they're just good men. They came here for different reasons. Like some came for financial reasons, some came, you know, the political reasons in America, some came looking for love. And everybody that I know that's come over here, whatever it is they were searching for, they found. And they're all very happy. You know, like most of my friends are in either married or in relationships and they're very happy. And I've had guys come up to me that said they watched my channel and they said back home they were miserable, they were lonely, especially older men like my age. You're basically invisible. You walk around America, nobody notices you, nobody talks to you. Even your neighbors don't even talk to you.
Yeah.
And they came over here and said, I can't believe it. Said I've been here like 6 months. I met a nice lady. You know, we've been dating for a long time. I got some friends now that are inviting me out to barbecues and stuff. And I started snorkeling. And I got a friend that plays tennis with me. And I just have this wonderful life that I never knew. And plus, my money's going so far. And they got a whole new life. It's like it's everything started over for them. And some days I feel like I'm a teenager again. You know, you feel younger.
But actually, I find, I would say congratulations on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Personally, I find it inspirational. Like the fact that you're letting, you know, older guys know or even younger guys know that, you know, you tell the story many times. You came over here with your $900, Social Security, deeply in debt, and you've managed to make like a really quality of life for yourself that most guys your age in America couldn't even dream off of a third of the income.
Yeah.
And I think that is inspirational to a lot of people. Like they feel trapped.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like, all right, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm getting myself further in debt. There's no options. I'm stuck here, or maybe I can move further out rural in America where now you've got a new set of problems when your car breaks down or something like that. Whereas it shows that there is an option. And it's a scary option. It's terrifying. 99.9% of people could never get over their fear to go move overseas.
Yeah, to hop on a plane and go to another country. I mean, it's a scary thing for some people. And I know a lot of guys, they live vicariously through me and other vloggers, you know, and they watch it on their phone and on their computer and pretend that someday they're going to do the same. They might even be messaging a girl over here, you know, but then that when push comes to shove, they're never going to like buy that ticket and hop on that plane and actually come over here. And the ones that have the guts to do it and do come here, 90% of them are really happy. Yeah, there's been some guys I've met who've come here and said, the Philippines is not for me.
Yeah.
But you've got the whole rest of the world too. Like there, you've got Mexico, you've got, you know, Eastern Europe that you mentioned. There's all these other places you can go if you're not happy where you are. You know, but if you just stay there, you know, you're just going to get more miserable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And there is like there's a different flavor for
Yeah.
everyone. Like I know I've met guys that they don't want to be around other expats.
Yeah.
They'd rather live out in the village with all locals.
Yeah, I met them. Yeah.
Right. And I've met guys that like they never talk to anybody out other than other expats.
That's true too.
And you know, if that's what makes you happy, tear it
Yeah.
up. Like I always hate when there's that judgment of like,
Yeah.
oh, you need to go engross yourself in the local culture, or oh, you know, if it works for you, do it.
Yeah.
Because there's an old saying like, go where you're treated best.
Oh yeah.
And if you aren't finding what you find in America, why haven't you tested out somewhere else?
Yeah.
Why have you basically told yourself that you're okay being miserable
Yeah.
when there is other options? There are definitely other options. Why not try it?
Well, like I said before, like there's a lot of former military guys, and you guys, I don't know if it's because of your training or what, but they all seem to do well. Like, I guess, you know, because you're used to being in another country, but you can take a military guy and you drop him off in the Philippines or Mexico or Thailand or wherever, and within a couple days they've reconned the whole area. They know where their store is, they know where the hospital is, they know where this road goes, they know where that road goes, they know how to get their way around. They started meeting some local people, and you could check back with them 6 months later and they're all settled in. They're all completely, they've got it all figured out. Whereas I met people that come here, and literally one couple, they came here and they were at the hotel down here, Honeycomb, and they called me up, hey, we just got here and we don't want to leave the hotel, it looks so dangerous out there. And they were afraid to walk out of their hotel. They just look out the window, oh my God, what am I going to do? And you can't be that fearful. If you're a fearful person, you know,
Well,
it
that
really
makes-
limits you.
Well, it makes you more open to having problems too.
Yeah.
Because people smell that on you.
They
If
smell
you're
it,
walking
you're
around fear, then they think they
Like
can
a
take
dog
it.
can smell it on you.
Yeah. But I think the military thing, I think there's a lot of truth to that because, and I think the reason is we always had a saying, adapt and overcome. Mm-hmm. And any guy I know that was in the military, they've dealt with like some really bad living conditions.
Mm-hmm.
They've dealt with people treating them like horribly, right? Because that's part of the,
Yeah.
it's part of it. So like, I stayed at one place where I was telling you a little bit about it, where you know, you can see the outside from inside the hotel. Like
Yeah.
they have big gaps in the wall. There's gaps in the door. The only lock is like a little flimsy door handle lock. You know, the area is real dirty. There was just trash laying around. I know from being in the military, I can deal with anything for a month.
Yeah.
Anything. Like I could deal with somebody attacking me daily for a month.
Yeah.
Whereas like, oh, it's a little dirty. Oh, my house isn't so nice for
Yeah.
a week.
Yeah.
Like that's a weak person thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you know, from your time in the military, you can deal with anything for at least a short amount of
Yeah.
time. So I think that kind of helps with the ability like to adapt and overcome any kind of adversity you might find when you come out to a new location.
But that place wasn't in the Philippines though, was it?
Yeah. It was
Oh, was it Philippines?
Yeah, it was a little place on Penloa Island, like
Okay.
off of Bohol. But I was just finding random places on Agoda for like,
Yeah.
I think it was like $12 a night.
Yeah.
I was spending. So like I wasn't expecting too much. And it was like, all right, 4 days.
When I
problem.
first came here, I stayed 10 days in a place, and there was a mattress on the floor. You know, it had sheets and pillows and stuff that probably hadn't been washed in a long time. One little tiny fan screwed to the wall. You know, screens on the windows that kind of had holes in them everywhere. And I was there, but it was okay. And I had no transportation. I was there for 10 days, and I found a better place.
Right.
And it just, you know, it made, actually, being in that place made my new place, which was very modest, a studio apartment, it made it seem like a luxury. Oh, wow, we got a pool, and I got internet, and I got this, you know, and I got, you know, some furniture and pots and pans. Like, it's way better than what I had before, so I was happy.
Yeah,
you know?
relative luxury.
Yeah, relative luxury, exactly, yeah. Well, anyway, we've gone like 40-something minutes here. Thank you so much for your time, and really nice to meet you. Somebody else from Indiana, and I hope you decide to stay here, you know, and make lots of new friends, you know.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, your channel is an inspiration to a lot of people, and I'm sure, I know I appreciate it. I'm sure they appreciate it too. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you next time. Bye.